everybody? Welcome to the latest episode of Deals and Deadlines. After a week of giving Hadley some R&R, we're putting him back to work. With Hadley Engelhard, I'm Matt Chernoff. Thanks so much for joining us on our sports business journey that we take here weekly. Remember, if you're just finding us, thank you. This podcast drops each and every Friday with new episodes on every podcast platform. Search Deals and Deadlines and subscribe. You can also watch us on our 680 The Fan YouTube channel. Now, speaking of podcasts, that's where I want to start with you, Hadley. There was a guest appearance.
We're promoting another podcast on this podcast?
Sure
they need help?
Yeah. So New Heights with Travis Kelce and Jason Kelce, which is the #1 sports podcast in America, had a guest by the name of Taylor Swift on.
Who?
Yeah. This week. And let me give you some numbers on what Taylor, this is also works into the football discussion we're going to have. So they had 1.3 million viewers at one point peak on YouTube. Not by a surprise, everything crashed. I mean, there was so many people tuning in. They got the stream back up. That worked. In the hours since they recorded, over the next 12 or 13 hours, about 8 or 9 million people watched the episode. And Hadley, there's a thought that this, when it's all said and done, might be the most downloaded podcast that we've ever seen, which I believe was a Saudi podcast that had about 144 million streams. You were talking about, from a business standpoint, Taylor, who is an industry, the NFL, which is the biggest sports industry, and it continues to be this. Forget the pushback of the guys who don't want to see Taylor in a suite. It continues to be this like revolving, helpful, bring women into the sport. Guys who watch football, Taylor Swift album, because she mentioned her album. Like, I don't remember seeing anything like an industry like these two getting together.
Yeah, I mean, it is amazing. Let's backtrack a little bit. I mean, put the Taylor appearance aside right now. What Travis and Jason have developed is pretty amazing. And what Travis has done as a football player is great, and obviously his relationship with Taylor adds to it. But Jason Kelce has become pretty iconic in this industry. He has taken the fanfare of being a longtime Eagle, riding that wave, Super Bowl champion, and really taking that to the next level as far as his visibility. People love being around him. He's pretty genuine in what he does. And when he goes to tailgate, he's still a kid. And he, no holds barred. Now you add the fact that their podcast alone has a lot of viewers because it's interesting. And then you add the relationship that his brother, Travis, has with Taylor Swift. And she announces she's going to be on the podcast. And so those two things are the perfect marriage. And yes, it goes to the synergy between sports and entertainment, right? I mean, it shows you that there is a marriage between not just the two of them potentially, but between the businesses.
Sure.
And
the NFL's got to love this.
They are loving every minute of it. It is helping them brand it. And they're taking advantage of it. They're working it. Now, are there some discussions internally where they talk about, hey, we're going to put them on these days, and hopefully Taylor's going to be involved?
Funny you say that. The Chiefs have 5 primetime games in their first 7 games this year. Just mere coincidence.
Correct. And she's not on tour. Right. Is that a coincidence?
Right.
And when she was on tour last year, for call, she was in the Northeast. They played in the Northeast so she can come into the suite. So they're being smart about it. And I'm sure both the NFL, their marketing side, and Taylor's team of marketing people are working hand in hand because it does benefit both. It benefits the NFL more than it benefits Taylor Swift. She doesn't need any more help.
No.
But she gets it, and if she is married to this process and going to end up having a true long-term relationship with Travis Kelce, who when he's done playing, maybe next year or the year after, he's still going to have this podcast. He's still going to be a face of the NFL. So she's getting the business side of it. And by the way, they're having fun.
They are. They look like it's a good-looking relationship, but his branding certainly has benefited. Okay, so something that happened last week now, I want to kind of circle back to. The NFL has bought into ESPN. A 10% stake in ESPN worth about $2.5 billion. So now yesterday, or earlier this week, Roger Goodell, the commissioner of the NFL, did a Zoom, a company town hall with everybody at ESPN in Bristol to reemphasize the network's editorial independence. So this is doth protest too much because none of us are believing. The NFL, which bought into ESPN, I'm sure the business side of it's part of it, but when you can be an owner and control storylines and narrative and discussions when uncomfortable things happen, none of us are going to believe that the NFL will be hands-off in how ESPN reports on their league.
Yeah, I think, and we know people who have worked with the NFL Network or work with ESPN, and this is, I think, a pacifier comment. It's letting the people that are working there to know that you're not going to be fired tomorrow. Everybody's calmed down. We have a true interest in it. We are truly vested in this, and we have say-so in what happens as far as the dialogue Do I believe it? No. I believe that, listen, this was a money play and a money play only. This allows the owners to now have a percentage of the largest media conglomerate in the world and make billions of dollars with it. So that will benefit the owners more than anybody else. Now, some of it will trickle down to the teams, which will trickle down to the players. But I think this comment in this town hall meeting was just to kind of tell people, don't jump ship, stay the course, and they're going to dictate whether you're part of this or not as they move forward.
Well, I think it's also to say, you can say what you want till we tell you not to.
Correct.
Until then, you have full editorial control until there's an uncomfortable story. So you had that with ESPN and the NFL. The other thing you had was the NFL now with a deal with the WWE. And here's what's going on behind this. So ESPN's got their direct-to-consumer app, which will be available to the consumer for $30 a month all the way up to $50 a month. The problem ESPN's going to run into, like a lot of these other streamers, is do I have enough content to persuade the American public to spend more on another streamer? Now, if you're a cable subscriber, a satellite subscriber, you already have ESPN. You're not going to have to pay the full freight. You're going to have access to this. But what they're hoping is that they can convince new subscribers with the NFL and now with the WWE, which will get all the premium live events, Hadley. They're going to have the pay-per-views monthly. They're going to have the premium access only behind their paywall that they think will work, combined with UFC. I have my doubts. I don't think there's enough content to have somebody pay $30 a month, but time will tell. The WWE helps because that audience is so loyal.
Yeah, I don't know if the WWE kind of finishes the puzzle per se, that it's going to bring enough content to move the needle. But listen, ESPN is making a major power play. They are the most powerful entity. They're trying to put as many pieces under their umbrella to control everything. The good news is, as a fan, someone who, we talk about you have to have a subscription here and here and here and here. Well, now there's less subscriptions we necessarily have to have if ESPN ends up controlling them all. Granted, there'll be different tiers of financial stuff, but it'll be much easier to access. So it's just a play for them to take over the entire media market once again.
It is. It's also like the WWE Network, which give Vince McMahon and the WWE credit. They were ahead of this, but it didn't work. They tried to do a WWE only. We'll charge you a monthly. You'll get your pay-per-views. You'll get all the content. They tried to come up with brand new, fresh content. It just didn't work.
But again, that was pre-streaming era.
They were trying the business
concept was
model.
there,
yes,
by far.
The business model was, let's do this, and even the WWE fans said there's not enough here.
Right.
To your point, I'm paying for Netflix, which keeps going up. I saw Peacock just announced another hike because you got to pay for that NBA coverage they're getting you. So that happened. Hulu, Amazon, all of them, right? So you've got to have enough to do it, which I'll be interested in with ESPN. On that note, the UFC also made a big announcement this week that UFC and Paramount, they will move away from UFC's existing pay-per-view model, which there's a UFC every Saturday night. Instead, the events will now be available at no additional cost if you're a Paramount Plus subscriber. So the deal is a 7-year, $7.7 billion exclusive deal in the U.S. with Paramount. All UFC events will stream on Paramount Plus with select events airing on CBS, kind of like the model of ESPN gets maybe prelim, then you get to the main events of the card, you go to Paramount Plus, you got to subscribe. The question is, will this get Paramount Plus a return on that kind of investment?
Yeah, I first of all, twofold. I think that what Vince McMahon tried to do, Dana White learned from all of it. Obviously, it's new timing, new era, new media platforms, and Dana White is implementing what Vince McMahon tried to do, and he's done it with UFC. I mean, he's hit the home run of all these entities. He's the one who's done the best.
And he's figured out a way not to pay his fighters, so the overhead stays low.
Correct. Well, and that may change a little bit with this new deal with Paramount. I think Paramount panicked. We talk about it all the time with teams panicking and media outlets panicking because they don't want to get lost. And was ESPN negotiating with UFC and using that as a leverage, like, we're going to put everything under ESPN. And Paramount said, we can't let that happen. So we're going to overpay for the UFC. UFC benefits from it. And now Paramount has it. Is there enough content? To be determined. Mm-hmm. But I think it's a great play. And also, I would say of all the different outlets out there, you and me maybe included, Paramount Plus isn't something that's everyone has. Everyone has the Netflix of the world, the Amazon Primes of the world. Paramount Plus is probably, further down the road. Well, if you're a big UFC fan, it now becomes something that you buy because A, you get other media things, but more importantly, for free, allegedly, you're going to get all these UFC events. And granted, I think there'll be some add-ons for some of the bigger events, and so all of this, in short term, it's just a big money play.
But let's add to it, too. You see the two themes here. The WWE and UFC present a younger audience and one of the two most loyal audiences in sports. They're not going to miss their events. So I understand what ESPN's doing and I understand what Paramount Plus is doing. I ask the same question to you all the time. At some point, there's got to be an ROI in this. Now, maybe you just look at it as we know it's going to be a loss, but it promotes everything else. We build up our subscriber base. We do now what Peacock just did. You're subscribing now for $9.99 a month, but 5 years from now, it'll be $20 a month. So there's a means behind this. I just wonder how the math works.
Yeah, and we'll never know because I don't think you'll ever share that information or at least legitimately share the information. But as a subscription holder to many of these different medium outlets, and it's $9.99, and they go to $13.99. Yeah, it's $3, $4. I don't even pay attention to it, right?
That's their hope.
Not a big deal.
Right.
But how many millions of people are doing that and saying, it's another $5, it's another $10. It's not a big deal. And that's how we all look at it. And that's what is going to end up happening is people say, I want the product. It's another $10, not a big deal. Again, you can now watch it with groups. So the cost per person is a lot less. And people may share, their subscription. And that becomes part of the individual, way to break it down. But it's, again, I think it's wonderful for these sports that these networks are committing to them, committing this kind of money to them. My only hope with people like the UFC and the WWE is that the hierarchy doesn't just hold on to that money with a little bit of trick down. The NFL, NBA are different because within the CBA, there are certain written requirements that a certain percentage of said monies trickles down to player salaries.
Yeah. All right, coming up, we'll talk about a big deal in the NFL that was just signed, a big deal. We continue with this edition of Deals and Deadlines with Hadley. I'm Matt. I'll remind you again, please subscribe to the podcast. Just search Deals and Deadlines, or if you're listening right now, hit the subscribe button. New episodes drop each and every Friday. And you can watch us on the 680 The Fan YouTube channel. All right, Hadley, as we get closer now to the beginning of the NFL season, the name of this podcast is kind of what we talk about. Deals get done when deadlines are approaching. The Bills got a deal done with James Cook. Their star running back signs a 4-year deal worth $48 million with $30 million of it guaranteed. He wanted more. They were a little nervous about going up to a higher level. It feels like they met in the middle. What do you think about the numbers, and what does this mean? I don't want to say for the next whoever running, Bijan or these next guys, where does this fit in with the hierarchy of running backs?
Yeah, I don't think it changes it much. My belief, and I haven't seen the final numbers, but I dealt with the Bills this offseason, also another free agent who just finished his third year as well. So I was dealing with them and talking to them directly and getting an understanding of what they were looking at across the entire market. My gut tells me the deal he ended up signing is pretty close to the deal he was offered a while ago. Was there a little massaging? Of course there was. Was it worth it for him to do what he did and create this bad blood? I'm not sure yet. Only time will tell. I mean, putting his house on the market, stop following him on social media, that didn't change the needle at all. This was a matter of trying to get the deal done. I think both parties are at least content now and happy, and he's got guaranteed money. He's got generational wealth now. Now we just got to go play football. And how it affects the market moving forward, I don't think it changes it much. Every team values that position differently, and Buffalo thinks it's important, but they also understand that, he's a great player and helps them win, but they need the Josh Allens. They need the other position players that really make it, the needle move. And so it's a great deal. I'm happy for Cook. The Bills now have a lot of pieces in place that that they can move forward thinking positively, and they really spent a lot of money on players that were entering their fourth year, where a lot of teams traditionally just pick and choose. They kind of did the whole class. So as a future Bills player, if you get drafted by them, you can look at saying, if I become a player within the first 3 years, there's a greater chance than not now that I can sign an extension that creates generational wealth.
I know Micah Parsons is hoping that's the situation in Dallas, but now we're hearing from Jerry Jones, and who knows if Jerry just speaks to his own voice, that's like a Wednesday or a Thursday. He wakes up and does it. But he says he thinks there's a chance that this standoff, and that was the word he used, could now find its way into the regular season. It could continue. So the money part of it aside, let's talk about feelings, because we can pretend there aren't human beings, and people get into their emotions when business is involved. You've already had Mike ask for a trade. Cowboys aren't trading him. So how do you massage the feelings? And tell me from the agent perspective, if you're talking to your client. I know you're emotional, it's affecting you, you're good, you're supposed to get paid, they're handling their business. How do you try to make sure that the emotion doesn't overtake the business that's going to happen?
It's hard, and I think Jerry Jones has done this poorly. And I think that's part of his MO in how he runs his business. He plays the bully role too often, and I think he doesn't have all these banners that he can show that he's won recently. So he lives back in the heyday, and I think he does things that for the betterment of the team, he's doing it the wrong way. Micah Parsons is a type of player that is deserving of high money. Again, I'm not sure what he's asking for, and if they're close, but Micah's being in the wrong. But let's assume Micah's asking to be paid to become the highest paid player at his position today. Not far-fetched to ask that. If Jerry Jones says you should be the 5th highest paid, it creates that problem. And when a player asks for a trade and now an owner says it's going to maybe go into the season, it's not good PR. The answer, obviously, we've talked about before is how do you resolve this so everybody says, okay, let's kiss and make up. You get the paid, you get the deal done. Cook's the same example. He's happy. We forgot about it. No more bad blood. My check enters my account. I'm good to go. So that's the only thing that can happen. The longer it drags out, the worse it is. And again, don't look at it just how it affects Micah Parsons. Just look at how it affects the locker room. Because there's another player who's young and good and thinking, wow, if I do work so hard and do so well, they're not going to treat me good if they're not treating Micah good. And so there's a domino effect internally. And in the locker room are players, not owners, not general managers, not player personnel people. It's just the players. And then they go out to dinner together, and their wives and girlfriends become friendly. And so there's a lot of talk going on internally that is going to create a bad locker room for the Cowboys this year and moving forward, I believe.
All right, let's switch gears and talk some college football for a second. Story came out this week that a billionaire who's a Kansas alum, a gentleman named David Booth, has committed $300 million to Kansas's athletic department. The gift ranks among the largest in college sports history. I always wonder about this, Hadley, because this is going to go directly to Kansas, and we talk about the business of college football. This is just a big booster, and I asked you about this a couple of weeks ago. It seems like we're transitioning back to a time in college football where, yes, a lot of the money being given to players now being given back to schools by what we used to call boosters. It's on the level until it's not. I don't know what's going to happen because we're going to have a salary cap in college football. We're going to have an NIL reform that we will look and have Deloitte and Touche check these deals out to make sure there's some standards and practices. All that's fine. My question is, what happens now that billionaires like this or other businessmen say, well, here's 50 grand under the table. Here's what's on the level. You're looking over here. We're going to still be paying you over here. I don't know how you stop that anymore.
I don't know if you can. And who says it stopped, right? Maybe it's been going on this whole time as well. I mean, I know coaches, well-known coaches, who still have burner phones and are still calling players when they shouldn't be calling players. In today's world where everyone's visible, people are still getting away with it. I don't know if this $300 million, how much is it going to be given to the football program and or through the NIL program. I don't know if it was, at least I didn't see any clarity on how that was going and over what length of time. But I think, a program like Kansas, if they want to be relevant, and they've never been truly relevant in football, if they're going to be relevant, the only way it's going to work is to spend money via the portal. You can do the revenue sharing, but then you got to find ways to pay additionally through the NIL and steer kids that way. And I just dealt with the University of Kansas this offseason for a player who entered the portal to go there, and they were pretty easy to deal with. It wasn't a high-end player. It wasn't, life-changing money, but it was a six-figure deal. And, it'll be interesting to see how that changes because, again, the only way you're going to pull kids that are 4- and 5-star Alabama, Georgia-type players is money. They're not going to go play for Kansas in that conference and play football there. They're just not going to do it.
That's my point, though. If the salary cap is the same, though, you're going to have to go above and beyond to get somebody who can get the same money at Alabama or Georgia to consider Kansas.
Correct, and that's what happened. And listen, not just Kansas. We see it at the University of Florida, my alma mater, to stay relevant within the SEC, their own conference. They are, quote-unquote, overpaying because otherwise kids want to go to these programs that are currently winning. Listen, all these programs, whether it's Kansas, Florida, Georgia, Ole Miss, it doesn't really matter. They're all great schools who provide a pipeline to the NFL. They all know what it takes. They all get the same visibility. Yes, you're not playing every Saturday night. You're not playing for a national championship. But if your goal and desire is to play in the NFL, you can find it at all these universities. Today's a little different because the odds of making it are very small. Obviously, that's new. That's not new. That's always been around. The odds are small. But now you can not only, you used to think, well, if you go to this college, you can walk away with this degree. and that will prepare you for the next 40 years. Well, now you can go to whatever college. Yes, the degree may be less, but I can walk away with $3, $4, $5, $10 million that my next chapter, if I don't make it in the NFL, it's life-changing. And so we see it. We talk about our kids who, some that are, some that aren't playing sports. You look at why are you going to this college? Well, they gave me this scholarship. Well, so what was part of the decision process? Money, of course. And so you can't blame these kids to go to another university and leave. What really has to change with regard to this portal and NIL isn't as much the money, it's the current free agency, and there's no commitment. And we talk about coaches can leave and come and go as they want. They really can't, because they have a contract and there's buyout clauses and there's severe penalties, and coaches don't leave every year. But you're finding college players every single year jumping ship, and all it takes is one other university or one new university to say, hey, we value you, we need you, here's X dollars. And Kansas is just trying to create that so they can at least compete on paper.
All right, one more story I want to pick your brain on here. The sale of the Boston Celtics in the NBA has been unanimously approved. The first part of that we learned it was this in March when the transaction was going to go through, and now the $6 billion sale is going to happen. The reason I bring it up is we talk about the valuation of sports franchises. It's one of the few things that doesn't go down, and it's recession-proof. But the NFL right now, at least in America, we're not doing worldwide where soccer clubs are valued at even a higher number. But I wanted to compare the Celtics. They're one of the, best franchises, most successful in sports, right? Compare their $6 billion sale to the valuation of the Cowboys, which is double that, a little more than double. It's valued at just under $13 billion. The Rams got a valuation of $10.4 billion. The New York Giants, $10.2. The Patriots, $8.7. The Niners, $8.6 billion. I don't know where the end game for these franchises is. I don't know. This becomes at some point, you never hear right now that it's going to be hard for a 23-year-old to go buy a house because of the house prices and because of the market. At some point, I know we have enough billionaires, but these prices, who's going to be able to afford when these teams want to sell at some point to the next billionaire?
Well, obviously, it's a lovely market, right? The moment it goes up for sale, it's not like one person's bidding for it. You have multiple entities. And remember, most of these franchises, when they're sold, aren't one person. Correct. There is a lead person who may have enough money to do it, but he also he or she brings in other billionaires to form the entity that then goes ahead and purchases the franchise.
That's why we have private equity becoming
correct, and that's why it's going to be bigger in college sports too. It's just bringing multiple people together to bring you more money. And so I don't think there's ever. I love it. I think it's great that the
I know you do
because I know it just shows how healthy it is. And if I do question when people spend money on certain sports franchises that aren't great sports. But the problem with some of it is we talked about the NBA and we talked about the NFL. The NFL is a very obviously healthy, as healthy as it could be financially from top to bottom. The NBA is healthy-ish. There's some questions about the product, but it's still healthy. The problem we're into is Major League Baseball. It's not that they can't sell franchises for whatever number they pick, but there are no floor, let alone ceiling, on what people have to spend, meaning ownership on players. And therefore, all these ownerships look at, all right, I own X team, we'll use Tampa Bay for example, and I own it, and every year I go up in value whether I win 162 games or 0 games. It doesn't matter. And so there's no incentive to win. And so because there's other future owners out there, as long as you have the franchise, there's only between the 3 of those, you're talking about 100 franchises. Of the 100 franchises, that's it. And if you want to be one of the major league sports franchises, there's 100 of them, you're going to have to pony up.
All right, coming up, we'll talk about a betting scandal that might see politics get involved in sports in a way that maybe we weren't expecting. Plus, Hadley brought up the NBA. The NBA season schedule is out. Why it matters where the NBA games are going to be seen from a business perspective. We'll share that with you next. All right, we continue this edition of Deals and Deadlines with Hadley. I'm Matt. Thanks so much for being a part of the program today. All right, Hadley, we feel like it seems anyway that we have a betting scandal every other week now that we must discuss.
Not me and you.
Not you and I. No, we're fine. We're
just want to make sure.
You and I, my English teacher wouldn't be happy. So the state of Ohio, it sounds like, is moving closer to limiting player prop bets following the investigation into a couple of Cleveland Guardian pitchers. The governor, Mike DeWine, is pushing for a ban, a full blanket ban on daily fantasy, prop betting, all of it. So without making this overly political, I have such a problem with this. I'm sorry that players are taking advantage, and for them breaking the rule of their sport, which is essentially the thing that'll get you kicked out. We're going to take away revenue from the state, do something that's for everybody else harmless if you're an adult who can control yourself. Again, I don't want to get political, but are we going to get into smoking? Are we going to get into drinking? Are we going to get into all this stuff? This feels like a very grandstanding, we're not going to accept this because now it's gotten into sports and we have two of our own who couldn't stand not getting involved in gambling.
I couldn't agree with you more. I think this is about this person trying to take a position to create headlines. And first of all, in Ohio, so that means here in Georgia, I can still bet on the Indians.
Right.
And so
I can call somebody in another state.
Correct. So there's no, until it becomes federal and we have a full governance, I don't think any of these things matter. The problem, and we've spoken about this before, the problem that all of these leagues run into is, initially it was always, early in my career, everything was anti-gambling. And we were not affiliating anti-alcohol, anti-gambling. You can't do anything. We couldn't. We had to be very careful. And players, no, you can't even go to Vegas. It was just, there was a lot of things. And now that, we have all these different betting options, right? All these different platforms that you can bet on. Initially, the NFL and other leagues didn't get in bed with them. And so they were operating. But now all these leagues are in bed with them. And they're promoting their products. And now they're getting upset that it trickled down to the players. Well, how'd you not think that was happening? I mean, as a parent, if you do things that you shouldn't be doing in theory, and you trickle it down to your children, and they start doing it, you only have yourself to blame for it. You put your kids in that way, harm's way. You taught them things. Well, that's what the league has done. Mm-hmm. And so it's, no team's ever going to go in Vegas. We're never going to have anything in Vegas because that's Sin City. Mm-hmm. Now we got everybody in Vegas.
Yeah, here's what I would tell you, too, though. I think they knew there was a fear of the player being involved, and this was always what we talk about. The one thing these leagues care about, they tell you they care about domestic violence, and they care about steroids, and they care about drug use. They care about the games being on the level, or you, the consumer, believing they're on the level. That's the only thing that would kill the golden goose. So did they think it could trickle to the players? Yes. Now they don't have the line that you talked about of, we're not involved. Yeah, you are involved, so now you got to take a harsher stance because you're taking the money from these gambling companies, and now your players are also getting involved.
Right, and the players that have gotten in trouble with gambling on prop bets haven't affected the outcome of a game. When that happens, there's going to be some bigger issues. But now that you know that they are involved, do you investigate it? Or do you kind of do this and say, we're not going to pay attention to anything, and if it happens, we'll deal with it then? These leagues have put themselves in a tough position. But again, earlier in this episode, we talked about the billions of dollars of this and the billions of dollars. By the way, as we're talking, if we had this podcast 10 years ago, I don't know if any of our episodes, the word billion would ever come up. And now it's the general term on every radio show and every podcast. The word billion now becomes part of the vernacular. And so it's interesting to see that. To be surprised that these things are happening is baffling to me. Yeah. Until it has a true effect on the game, I think people are just going to go with it, and the leagues are going to go with it. But again, NCAA is talking about private equity, and so you're opening yourselves up to it, and now you can't say, "Oops, I'm sorry that this happened."
Well, this is, and this is a bad analogy, I fully admit, but this is, be careful who you take the money from, right? Liv was trying to build off Saudi money. People went, "Oh, it's dirty Saudi money," until the golfers started taking the money, and they jumped at it. So again, not a great analogy, but when the money's involved, you're willing to deal with partners you wouldn't have before.
And look, LeBron and powers to be are trying to develop their own league, which is surprising. We've talked about before. I'm sure we'll have future talks about it. But the money is coming from whoever, but also the Saudis. They want to be involved in American sports, and their business plan may be to take over more than just that. So it's, again, be careful of who you, that's a great example. Be careful who you get in bed with. Once you do, these issues are going to happen. And the fact that now they're crying wolf, hey, you made this choice. And so NIL, portal, you made this choice. We are here now.
Okay, so I want to talk to you about the business of the NBA, because the schedule just came out and we have new TV partners. You've got NBC, you've got Peacock, you've got a reimagined deal with ESPN and ABC. With that in mind, the NBA regular season begins Tuesday night, October 21st, with 2 games. The Rockets and the world champion OKC Thunder. What does that mean? That means Kevin Durant. That means the MVP, SGA, and the champs. The other game is Golden State and the Lakers. The league's still heavily leaning on Steph, LeBron. Then you start looking at Christmas Day, which was always one of their tentpole days, which the NFL has stepped in. But on that day, Cavs and Knicks, Spurs and Thunder. So you get Wemby, you get the world champion Thunder. Rockets again with Durant against the Lakers and LeBron. Mavs and Cooper Flag against the Warriors and Steph. T-Wolves with Ant-Man and Jokic. So while they're trying to bring this next generation in, they're still leaning heavily on this soon-to-be NBA core that's going to be aging out, which the NBA might have a problem because it's always been like Michael walked away, was trying to wait for the next group. You're going to lose LeBron, KD, Steph, and this whole class. They're going to squeeze everything out of this while they can.
Yeah, I was surprised when I saw it, and I haven't delved into it enough to see the entire elite schedule, but the team and the player that surprised me the most with Houston and KD. I think KD has become, at least in my eyes, more of a second-tier type of an elite player. Steph Curry is still Steph. LeBron is still LeBron, whether you like them or not. They're still elite. I think KD and with the Houston Rockets, I think that's a step down. But I agree with you. They're holding true to the old guys and not playing enough of the young stars on these national primetime games. And it'll be interesting because the new generation may not love watching it. And if those players, because of their age, aren't healthy when those games happen, now all of a sudden you've got crap games on TV. And so it's an interesting transition. We've talked about this before. The good news is there is a lot of great young talent. They're not always in the best markets, but there's a lot of great young talent, SGA being one of them. And if Cooper Flag becomes a fraction, not a small fraction, but if he's an elite player, that changes everything. Because that's a great market too.
They're also trying to feature Ant-Man.
Right.
They're trying to feature Wemby, and it's kind of where they've got to go. I think it was interesting as the NBA has sort of lost what they had on Christmas Day because now we have 3 NFL games. The story was that they want to try to build something on MLK Day, which are going to be games featured on NBC, 4-game national slate with the Hawks and the Bucks, exclusively on Peacock on MLK Day on January 19th at 1 o'clock. Then OKC against the Cavs. It'll be on NBC and Peacock at 2:30. Then they'll have Mavs and Knicks at 5, Celtics and Pistons. They're trying to build more days. So you spent this much on this TV deal. Peacock's like, all right, we got to get days where it's exclusive to us, again, to try to build up a subscriber base and to try to build up viewers for their other programming.
Yeah, I mean, listen, everyone is trying to grab, and there's only so many great teams with so many great players. And so you got to try to find that commonality between them all. And I think the season will change and the scheduling may change a tad as teams change, right? I mean, certain teams do much better markets, better players. So there's a lot of moving parts. You brought about Ant-Man, and I think they are trying to get him in, but I've talked to people within the league and within the marketing world. He's a wild card because he's got a little bit of Dennis Rodman in him in the sense that he doesn't care. And so he's not playing by the old school thought process of doing things by the book as far as his personality and the way he handles stuff. And I think that kind of scares people within the NBA and other marketing entities. And so as great as a player he is, that part of it they've got to still figure out.
All right, Hadley, one more story I wanted to pick your brain on. We do our show, obviously, in the Battery right by Truist Park here in Atlanta. Stories came out about what the quarterly numbers were for the Braves from a business standpoint. Well, the Battery generated about $25 million in revenue for the Braves over the last quarter alone. The team estimated that their real estate holdings now are worth over $1 billion. So they were very smart when they not only moved here, but they also knew this was a real estate play beyond a sports play from Liberty Media, and then when they had the offshoot of Atlanta Braves Holdings, and now that's, again, its own entity. What we're seeing around the country is this is being used as a kind of a prototype of what new arenas want to build. Like, we're going to have this downtown Atlanta. We're going to have that Centennial Yards that's going to be right around State Farm and around Mercedes-Benz. If we get a hockey team up at South Forsyth, the Gathering. This is happening everywhere. How can we build both potential money when it comes to revenue for everything around our arena, and let's build, hotels. Let's build condos. Now we become a real estate partner as well.
The Battery is the boilerplate. I mean, that is going to be moving forward. I have talked to people at various different levels, from pro, major league type stuff to minor leagues, that they're redoing stadiums and implementing this mixed use type of development. And you're exactly right. Where can we own the property, own the real estate? So not only are we developing and retail's making us money, but also the real estate's making us money. So that is a big play in all this. And all these franchises are now looking at it. And that's where it's going to be important moving forward, that ownership is not just going to look at the stadium. It used to be the stadium was the most important thing. Stadium is really secondary. It's all the things around it on how do we have that real estate play to benefit us. Again, when you own this real estate, you're getting rent from this person, things that you own directly, you're getting double paid. So it is a great play. Listen, I've said it before and I'll say it again. I never thought this was going to work. When it first was announced, really, we're putting it here in this part of Atlanta, didn't think. When it opened up, I was sold. And it's only gotten bigger and better. And if I was a 25-year-old single guy, I'd be living in the Battery and enjoying the life here. And I think every type of franchise moving forward, big or small, is going to follow the platform that the Braves built here with the Battery.
Interesting. If you really want to go back, it's a bigger discussion. It's kind of what Walt Disney envisioned years ago when I'm going to build a theme park, and that's part of what we want. I'm going to build a theme park with all the hotels, and all your revenue is going to come on it. So it wasn't just this, and to your point, this isn't just about stadiums anymore. Let's build theme parks around our stadiums.
Correct.
And all the revenue is going to come to us, and it's worked out here in a big way. All right, if you guys would subscribe to our pod, always appreciated. New episodes each and every Friday when Hadley's not jet setting around the globe. I mean, it's hard to get him nailed down. You can subscribe there or watch us on the 680 The Fan YouTube channel. We'll talk to you next week on Deals and Deadlines.